Alright, welcome back. This is the final section, 3.4, quadratic functions. Alright, so A says, find the rule of the quadratic function whose graph has the given vertex and passes through the given point. So we need to remember that this formula for the HK, which is the vertex, and then, just as an aside, to find the vertex, it's negative b over 2a. That's your x coordinate. And your y coordinate is the f of negative b over 2a. And then your vertex is h comma k. And when I'm looking at this formula, I like to think of it as the opposite of h comma k, because I think that's more exact from here. Because when we translate this from our problem in I, notice that we're going to have our a term, and we're going to have x, and then we have a 2 here, and it's going to be minus 2. So if I was asked to give the vertex from this format, from this form, say, hey, what's the vertex here? It's going to be 2 comma negative 4, which is 2 comma negative 4 is the opposite of this negative 2. So just as an aside. And then what we need to do is we need to make sure that this equation here passes through the point 5 comma 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to set this equal to 2. So the f of 5 should be equal to 2. And I'm getting the 2 from the y term, and the x is going to be the 5. So I'm going to input 5 and get 2. And I'm going to solve for a. So we have a times the x is 5. So 5 minus 2. We're going to square that. We're going to subtract 4, and we're going to say that that is going to be equal to this 2. So this is going to be 3 squared. Okay, so I have 9a is equal to, take this 4 and move it over here, 6, and a is equal to 6/9, which is equal to 2/3. So we replace this a value with 2/3. If I wanted to make it neater, it would look like this. So there you go. And you probably want to put the f of x equals. In the next question, they want to know where the vertex is at the origin. So we have the same a times x minus 0 squared plus 0. And these zeros just go away. So we have a x squared. And f of x equals ax squared. And then we need to find the f of negative 2. And we need to make sure that's equal to negative 5. So we have a times negative 2 squared. When is that equal to negative 5? And so negative 2 squared is 4. So I have 4a equals negative 5. And I have a is equal to negative 5/4. So then I would just replace the a with that negative 5/4. So the f of x is equal to negative 5/4. And I probably don't need to do that anymore. X squared. Okay, our last problem like this. We have a vertex at negative 2. So we have a times x minus negative 2. I'm going to square that, and it's going to be plus 0. So we have a times x plus 2 squared. And then we have the f of x, which is going to be negative 3. So f of negative 3 has to be equal to 1. And we're simply going to input negative 3 in here for x. So we have a times negative 3 plus 2 squared. And that's going to be a times negative 1 squared. And that's going to be 1a. So just a. And this is equals 1, equals 1, and equals 1. So a equals 1. So we have f of x is equal to the quantity x plus 2 squared. And if you were asked to find the vertex here, what's the vertex? It's the opposite of h comma k. H is 2, so it's the opposite, and k is out here. There isn't one, so it's 0. And does that negative 2 comma 0 match that? It does. So let's move on. All right, B, last section. Without graphing, answer the following questions. Questions 1 through 5. Actually, there's 1 through 9. Oh, I see. 1 through 5 about each quadratic equation in this section. Okay, so these are the quadratic equations in this section here. And let's answer these questions, okay? So if it's parabolic, is the function opening upward or downward? Okay, so they want to know if it's parabolic, is it opening upwards or downwards? Remember that this is the graph of x squared and this is a graph of negative x squared. And then if it's not parabolic, which quadrant does the function go to positive and negative infinity? So like if the function was x cubed, and that, which is not parabolic, and that's what it says, so it's going to be an odd function and these are even functions. It says which quadrant does the function go to positive and negative infinity? So it would go, for this one, it would be positive infinity in quadrant 1 and negative infinity in quadrant 3. Remember that if this is the only video you watched, I went over this in another video, but we have quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if it's the negative version of this, so negative x cubed, so these are negative odd functions, they start in, or they go from, they go to negative infinity in quadrant 2. I'm sorry, they go to negative infinity in quadrant 2, and they go to positive infinity in quadrant 4. All right. Is it an even function or odd? Well, we just said x squared, x to the 4th, x to the 6th, all even functions, x cubed, x to the 7th, x to the 5th, x to the 9th, yada yada, all odd functions. And how many zeros is the function? So we're going to be factoring, or using the quadratic formula, or completing the square, or something. Is the function narrower or broader? We're going to need to complete the square to figure that out. And then we need to tell the x-intercepts, the y-intercepts. We need to algebraically find the vertex and complete the square. Okay, so here we go. This first function, I. We have the f of x is equal to negative x squared minus 6x plus 3. So This one is parabolic, so this is not going to apply. It wants to know if the function is moving upward or downward. It's a negative x squared, so it's going to be downward. The second question doesn't apply. The third question is the function even or odd. This function is even. The highest power is 2, and 2 is an even number. How many zeros does the function have? Well, it could have at least 2. And is the function narrower or broader? I think that question we should probably move down here because we need to complete the square, find the x-intercept, y-intercepts. Okay, so the y-intercept for this one is going to be when x is 0. So when x is 0, that term goes away, this term goes away, and we're just left with 3. So the y-intercept is 3. The x-intercept are when we factor it. So let's go ahead and factor this guy, or try to. So I'm going to take, let's see. So I got a -3 and a -6. Alright, it looks like that's not going to factor by hand. So I go to the -b plus or minus the square root of 4ac, I'm sorry, b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So my a is -1, my b is -6, and my c is 3. The opposite of b is 6. Plus or minus the square root of b squared is going to be 36. And we're going to subtract 4 times a, or we just do -4 times a, so we'll just change that to a plus. Okay, so we got -4 times 1, or times -1, times c, which is 3. So we have negative times negative is positive, positive times positive is positive, so it's going to be a positive. 4 times 1 is 4, times 3 is 12. So this is going to be 48. So we have the square root of 48 all over 2 times a, which is 2 times -1, which gives me a -2. Okay, so we have 6 plus or minus the square root of 48 over -2. Alright, so there are my zeros. If I wanted to, I could try to factor this guy. I know 4 goes into here, so what I'm going to start with here is 4 times 12, and then 4 goes into here. 4 times 3. So this square root of 48 turns into 4 times 4 times 3, and then I can break that apart to square root of 4 times the square root of 4 times the square root of 3, and that's just 2 times 2 times the square root of 3, so I have 4 root 3. So when I write my zeros, I'm going to do, I'm going to have 6 plus or minus 4 times the square root of 3 divided by -2. Or you can bring the negative out front, however you want to do it. But if you do, make sure to put it in parentheses. Alright, so there are my zeros, and there are 2 of them. Let's see, what else do I want to know? So my zeros are my x-intercept, so that's those guys. And then we need to algebraically find the vertex, and in order to find the vertex, we're going to have to complete the square. So we have -x squared minus 6x plus 3. So I'm going to factor out a negative. So it'll be plus 6x minus 3. And then since the second step said to complete the square, I could have just done that negative b over 2a, comma f of negative b over 2a, if they just asked me to find the vertex. But they didn't. They told me to complete the square and find the vertex. So I'm assuming they want us to find the vertex from completing the square, which is fine. So what I'm going to do here is complete the square. So we're going to take half the x term. So we're going to have b over 2a, or just, this is just 1, so half of b. So that's 6 over 2, that's 3. And then I'm going to square it. So I'm going to have the opposite of x squared, rather x, plus 3 squared. Sorry, I keep getting interrupted by my kids. Okay, let's see, where was I? So we did half of b, and then we squared it, and when we square this, so we still have this minus 3 here, and we're setting that equal to 0, and then what we need to do is we multiply this guy, so it's going to be 9, and it's going to be a negative 9, so we're going to add a negative 9 to this side, or subtract 9. So this is going to be negatives, the opposite of x plus 3 squared, negative 3, and then we're going to add 9, so we're going to get a positive 6, and then the vertex is going to be negative 3, comma 6. And just going to verify that all that worked out, because I had a lull there. Alright, so there it is. Negative x squared minus 6x minus 3 has a vertex at negative 3, comma 6. So it's right. And that means that we also found, so we found the vertex and we completed the square. So this guy here would be the completed square. I'm hoping to get a little easier, a little less math. That one was pretty intense. Alright, so oh, this one's going to be cool. Okay, so let's see, what is it? It is parabolic. So this one's not going to apply, and this one has it's positive out here, so we're going to say that this one's going to open upward. Just do that. The function's even. How many zeros does the function have? It's going to have at least 2. Is the function narrower or broader? Oh, that's what we didn't answer on the other one. And what was that value out front? I don't remember. This should say narrow, broader, or neither. So like, if it's 1, it's neither narrower nor broader. Anyway, so we have an x-intercept when y is 0. So 3 times x minus 2 squared minus 3 equals 0. So we have x minus 2 squared is equal to positive 3 divided by 3. That goes to 1. So we have x minus 2 squared is equal to 1. And now I take take the square root of both sides. Since it's 1, makes it a little easier. So we have x minus 2 squared is equal to, is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1. And the square root of 1 is just 1, so plus or minus 1. And then we have x minus 2. So we do x is equal to 2 plus or minus 1. So our zeros are going to be 2 plus 1 or 2 minus 1. So 3 comma 1. Okay, so 3 and 1. On the y-intercept, it's going to be when x is 0. So if x is 0, we have 4 times 3 is 12. We have 9. The vertex, algebraically, this thing is already, the square is already completed. So it's going to be the opposite of this. So 2, comma, negative 3. And this one is going to be narrower because this is a whole number, and it's going to approach, it's going to come in towards the y-axis versus going towards the x-axis. Let's see. Did we answer all the questions? Complete the square? Okay, no problem. There it is. Alright, so we'll go to the next function. Clear that one. So we have triple I. It's going to be triple I negative x plus 5 squared. And that's it. So this is already completed for us. This is parabolic, and it's going to open downward. This negative sign here. And if I was to multiply x plus 5 times x plus 5, I would get negative x squared. And then we have, don't have to worry about that one. The function is even. How many zeros does the function have? It's squared, so at least 2, or up to 2. How many zeros? Is the function narrower or broader? The function is, put or neither. This function is going to be neither because it's just 1. And we need x-intercepts. So we go x plus 5 squared. Set that equal to 0. Divide by negative 1. And we have x plus 5 equals, x squared. 5 equals that, and we take the square root, so we have x plus 5 equals 0, and we have x is equal to, and it's plus or minus 0, which is just 0, so x equals negative 5, so it has 1 0. Alright, so here is the graph of that guy, just to show you what it looks like. And why it only has 1 0, and that's why I said it's parabolic, it's squared, and the zeros could be up to 2. In this case, in this specific polynomial, there's only 1 0, and it just touches negative 5. And interestingly enough, that's where the vertex is also, so it touches it at one point, and the vertex is there as well. And then it's going to cross the y-axis somewhere. But we'll figure that out in a second. Alright, so those were my zeros. So the x-intercepts are negative 5. The y-intercept, go back up here, and that's when x is 0. So we're going to have negative 5 squared. That's going to be negative 25. So crosses, or wait. Oh, you know what? I know what it is. That's interesting. Hang on. Let's go back to the graphing calculator. I forgot to put the negative in front of here, and I should have noticed that, but I didn't. There we go. And it crosses down here at negative 25. Alright, so negative 25. Algebraically find the vertex. The vertex is going to be at negative 5, 0. And complete the square, no problem. Done. Alright, so we're doing this one, number 4. Let's see, x squared minus 10x plus 20. Alright, so this function is parabolic and opens upward. This one doesn't apply. Do they even have any cubic ones in here? I don't see one. Is the function even or odd? The function is even. How many zeros does the function have? Well, it could have up to 2. Is the function narrower or broader? Well, we'll figure that out in a minute. Let's try to find our x-intercepts. Let's try to factor this guy. Alright, so we have 20 and negative 10. Let's see, 4 times 5. It's going to give me 9. Okay, so that's going to tell me that that I can't factor it this way. So, man, awesome. It just gave us a bunch of problems that we got to do a whole bunch of work with. Okay, so we're going to use the quadratic formula, or I could complete the square. Let's just use the quadratic formula. So we have negative b plus or minus the square root of negative b squared, or that's not negative b squared, Jason. I always mess this thing up. B squared minus 4ac, where a is equal to 1, b is equal to negative 10, and c is equal to 20. And I'll put this all over 2a. So negative b is going to be 10 plus or minus the square root of b squared is going to be 100, and then 100, and we'll do this, minus 4 times 1 times 20. That's going to be negative times positive times negative times positive is negative. Negative times positive is negative, so the answer is negative, and 4 times 20 is 80. And 100 minus 80 is going to be 20, all over 2 times 1, which is just 2. And 20 can be factored as 4 times 5. So 4 to the square root of 4 times 5, we'll break that apart. That's the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. That's going to be 2 root 5. So we have 10 plus or minus 2 root 5 over 2. And then this is going to cancel, and half of 10 is 5. So we have 5 plus or minus the square root of 5. So there are my zeros. Let's see, what else? Y-intercept at 20. And this was 5 plus or minus square root of 5. And then algebraically find the vertex. To algebraically find the vertex, make myself some room here. We're going to complete the square. Let's see, completing the square is going to be, okay, so it's going to be half of this term. Alright, so we take 1/2 of this b term, negative 10, and we're going to square that afterwards. I probably shouldn't do that. Let's take the half first. So this is negative 10 divided by 2. That's going to be negative 5. So over here we're going to have x minus 5 squared. And then we have this plus 20 plus this 20 is equal to 0. And then this is 25. So I added 25 here. I need to add 25 here. So that becomes 25. And then I subtract 25 from both sides. And if you figured out the shortcut to this, you're more than welcome to use your shortcut. But I'm not going to go over it because I have found more times than not you end up messing it up. So that's completed. The square has been completed, and there is a vertex for this at 5, -5. And I'm going to pull it up on a calculator and see if just to make sure I'm right. All right, so there it is. We have x squared minus 10x plus 20 has a vertex of 5, -5. And that's what we got, 5, -5. All right, and I guess when we're done, well, how many zeros does the function have? This function has 2. The other function, we would have put 1. Narrower or broader? It was neither for that last one. And then, okay, so 5. f of x is -1/4 times quantity x minus 2 squared plus 1. Alright, so this one is parabolic and it opens downward. Has a negative sign here. This one doesn't apply. The function is even. How many zeros does the function have? Up to 2. We'll answer this question last. Is the function narrower or broader? This function is narrower, or broader, I'm sorry, broader. Because this is less than 1, so broader. X-intercepts are going to be, we're going to have to do some work, figure that out. Y-intercept, when x is 0, so there's some more work. We're going to find the vertex, so that's easy. 2, 1, right here, the opposite of this guy. And the k term is the last term. Complete the square of the function, that's easy because it's already written for us. And then, so we'll just go here and find some zeros. And actually, I think this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the zeros, but I'm going to use the calculator to do it. So that way, if you get this on the calculator portion of the test, you won't have to do a whole bunch of math. You can actually use your calculator to solve this. So let me do that. Okay, so here's our calculator. I went and I pressed y equals. So this is y equals. I inputted it just as I saw it. I did parenthesis around the 1/2, and then we're going to hit graph. And now what we're going to do is take this dude guy and move it around about there, and then we're going to go to calculate. So we're going to hit second and then the trace button, and what are we calculating? We're trying to calculate a 0. So we're going to press 2, and then we're going to go to the left and then we're going to go to the right, and there's my 0, and it's not a pretty 0. That means it's some square root, and we'll look at that in a second. Let me make sure of that. So we're going to go calculate. We're going to calculate a 0. So I press 2. And you can look over here and you can say, okay, your y's are positive here. And then you keep on going until your y's turn negative. So there we go, negative y's. And you press enter, and press enter again. So we have a 0 at 4. So positive 4 is a 0, and you know what that means? That means I know what it is. I didn't hit the right button. I'm sorry. We're calculate zeros, and we go back to this side, and it says left bound, so we want to be in the negative, and then the right bound we want to be in the positive, and then that's it. See, now when it says guess, I'm going to press enter, and that's my 0, and that's a kind of a funky 0. That's interesting. So let's figure out what it is algebraically. I'm going to plug it into this graphing calculator. Alright, well, that's what it is. It is because I guess I should have zoom boxed it. So let's do this. Let's go back over here. And notice that these look completely different. So what is the difference here? Oh, I see the difference. I didn't put the +1. Alright, well, maybe this one wasn't the best example to go over with the calculator, and I want to know why the calculator didn't give me the correct 0. So let's go back to the graph here. This thing crosses at 0 at the point of origin. So let's go back to calculate. We're going to calculate a 0, and we're going to go left bound, and we're going to go right bound, and then we're going to hit enter. Oh, yeah, that's weird. Is that? It did say y equals 0 on its guess. But whatever. I hate using the calculator anyway. Alright, so let's set this thing equal to 0, and we'll see what happens. So we have -1/4. Actually, let's just do it right from here. So equals 0. So we have -1/4 times the quantity x minus 2 squared is equal to -1. And I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. And that'll cancel, and this will become a 4. And then divide by -1, that becomes positive. And then we have x minus 2 squared equals 4. Take the square root of both sides, and I get x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 4, which is going to be x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus 2. And then we have x is equal to -2 plus or minus 2. And there they are. So x is equal to 0, 4. This one did work out really, really nice, and that was probably the quicker way. But hindsight's always 20/20, and you never know until you try it. And like I told you before, these videos are on the fly, so I don't work them out beforehand. It's just, this would be like we were in a testing situation, and this is how I go about figuring out my answers. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video review for test 2. I'm sorry I didn't have more time to make everything perfect and proper and go back and change where I noticed where I started writing, and I would write something and it would start writing like this, all cattywampus. I should have written everything horizontally, or the mistakes I made with the verbiage, and whatever. Apologize, and maybe next time I'll try to make more time to make sure that they're all perfect and the verbiage is right and everything's on point. But that takes time, and you know as well as I do, college student and time, there's not much. So anyway, good luck on your test, and I'll see you in class.